Alright, this is Steve with the SRP channel, and we're doing a mast support for a service today. The existing right here, about 13-14 feet on an extension ladder. That attaches about 14 feet. You can see here, and so you can see that is a threaded, probably a threaded bolt, U-bolt there. Oncor no longer wants those. They want all those to go bye-bye, so I'm going to install the proper one and show you all how today. Another very exciting episode on SRP channel. And I'll be filming this myself, so please be patient. Okay, so this is kind of the style that would be there. Basically a screw thread, not a machine thread. And then this right here is, if I were doing the mast, this is what I'd use on most services, and that would attach to the mast. This is, that would go around a 2-inch rigid mast. This is what I'm going to use here, and this is a big eyelet. This is a like a 10-inch 5/8 bolt, and this is exactly what they want: thread, washer, and then on the other side a thread and a washer. And so with the rafters, there'd be like two of these, two 2x6s, and that's exactly what it's meant for. Or it's about 3 inches, and so I'll drill the hole out up there and feed that through, and then thread it in from the other side. Okay. So I got the hole drilled right here up in the eave, which was not easy, but this is the eye bolt I'm talking about. And we put that on the last thread, and then I will go up in the attic and then thread it from the other side. But you can see the substantial difference, girthiness of this as compared to that. Also, that overhead line is in crappy condition, and so that's actually Oncor's responsibility. So but they will not willingly replace it. You'll have to kick and scream. But it's from 1960 original service, and it needs to be replaced. Okay, so here we are up in the 1960 attic, and this came right out through here. Got perfect, so we'll put this on the side here, and then my other nut, square nut, good old fashioned square nut. So I'll tighten this by hand. I don't think that'll catch out there, so I might have to wait till there's two of us to tighten that down, but that's the idea. And that's much more secure, obviously. But got a little nest here. So if they were gonna do the attachment a little lower, you would block off here with a 2x6, not a 2x4, but at least one 2x6 across here. I think would be good. You could also do 2. That surely wouldn't hurt. But even if it was up against here, the 2x6, one of them, that would really wedge it in good. But but this is actually a little bit easier because we don't have to do that. So I was able to get this really tight here. I got a screwdriver, kind of held it in there, and then got channel locks, and it's really tight. But you don't want it up and down. You want the eye to be facing in the direction that the mast is going for the little strap there. Wedge clamp, that's what that's called. Wedge clamp. Well, since I'm doing a video on wedge clamps, I don't know if I've done one on setting up a service. I've done one on getting a mast to run up through an eave. So I'm going to go ahead and start up with where I'd probably start. So this is a gable end, so we don't have to go through a eave and so forth. So it's going to be easier usually. But what I do is I mark here 3 feet to 5 feet. That's where I start out. Oncor, that's where they want their meter bases center to. Obviously, that'd be crazy. I don't know why 3 feet but who knows. But anyway, so that's what size the meter would be right there. And normally I come under it, but that wouldn't allow enough space right there. So I'm going to come out to the side here with the panel. The panel is a Siemens 38 space panel, or I'm sorry, 40 space panel, 38 inch panel. So it's going to come pretty low. I'm going to have to move the AT&T box there. And then, but this works out good because the old panel is directly behind here. The stud for it is like here and here, or no, the studs for the old panels here and here. So if I get the panel here, I like to be able to knock out the back of the panel with a 2-inch conduit, and then go to the junction box on the other side. I remove the panel and put usually a 12 by 12 junction, by 12 by 12 by 4 junction box on there. So, and I think that looks the neatest. And then just feed straight through to that. So if that doesn't make sense, it might as I go. Federal Pacific. The evil, bad Federal Pacific panels. I guess, but they really are pretty bad. They just don't trip when they're supposed to. They're more likely to arc, more likely for the wire to melt from the heat rather than the breaker trip. That's usually what gives, is the wire will, if it's a dead short, the wire will usually melt, and that'll stop before the breakers will trip. They're that bad. I've tested them before. It's like a little arc welder, but yeah, they're not. But see, most people will say too about these, well, I've never had any problems. It's like, if you have a house that never has tripping breakers, that's bad. You're gonna have something trip sometimes, and that's usually you'll hear, oh well, I don't ever have any problems. They don't trip. That's bad. Okay, so you want your breakers to respond to overloads, shorts, and so forth. But that's so if you run a vacuum, a lot of times vacuums, they're so powerful, and then you run it on a light circuit with lights, that should trip a breaker a lot of times. And actually, that's good if it does it. That's doing what they should. I guarantee it, this panel in that situation would not. Anyways, that's my little Federal Pacific rant. But anyways, this is in the closet. You can't see because I'm running on the panel. So now you can see it's in the closet in this room. Can't have it in the closet. So I'm going to remove it and put this 12 by 12 by 4 box in there. I never keep the panels for junction boxes. First of all, I don't want any reminder that there was a Federal there. I think it's just bad craftsmanship. You just take out the whole panel, and use a real junction box. Don't try to remove stuff from here and make it a splice box. But that's just the way I've always done it. And so I will have this box here. Then I will actually have a conduit on the back of this 2-inch going straight into the back of the panel outside. so that the wires can feed straight through. That's what I normally try to do. Sometimes you have to use Romex up through the walls, but if I can do it that way, that's how I try to do it. But I think that is it on this part of the panel fun. Okay, prepping the meter base here. Of course, knock out the little tabs. I have this little beater tab knocker outer. This is actually one square driver that's worn out, so I keep it for just starting those. And so I usually use 5/16 these Hilti wedge anchors, to do it. And so obviously that's not going to fit. So then I go and just wallow out the ends with, you know, the little unibit, get them a little bit wider. Okay, got a couple things to cover right now. I'm mounting the meter base. These are the anchors I like to use. These are Hilti expansion anchors. They're skinnier, they're 5/16, but they're longer. Yeah, this is what, 2 5/8. Yeah. So I like that in softer brick, as opposed to a shorter, fatter one like a 3/8. You know, short and fat can be good sometimes, but typically long and skinny is better. And so this is my 5/16. I always mark it where the depth of the anchor, and go that deep, and then vacuum it out. Okay, so this is how. So I actually go out a little bit here. Mounted one anchor here. You can see it just still moves, but this, so this is a really easy way to do it. So now I get it level here with my magic bubble stick. Nobody really knows the science behind these things. It's surely magic little bubble, so I just call it a magic bubble stick. But it is level there, and so then I'll mark that here, and then do one of these other holes. And then when you have two holes, you're level, and then you could do the other ones. But that's why I drill those out before with the unibit, and use these anchors. I think it's a good way to do it. And this is fairly soft brick too. And then I did move it over a little bit. So my idea is with the crawl space here, I want to be able to have the panel have one conduit going into the crawl space, which in Texas, this happens in homes. I forget a lot of people around the country won't have crawl spaces. This was used in the South, in homes, all over the South, actually all over the U.S., primarily up to the early 60s. And then they start going to foundations. It is more expensive, but but I like to be able to get a conduit going under there for extra circuits. And so I moved it over so that my panel would fall between the two studs here, which it still does, but also be able to get a conduit into this crawl space without going through and penetrating through that brick little vent thingy, crawl space vent cover. So anyways, I don't like cutting through those. I think that's really doesn't look good. Always make your own holes. You know, this one cable did it, but, and you know, I'll remove that, and also move the AT&T fiber optic box over here. That wasn't a big deal. I used a smaller 1/4" anchors here, and then just put one little mount here. So you just got to be a little more cautious with the fiber optics. You know, those aren't like they can't be sharply bent, obviously. And then I got my ground rods in. So I started this one yesterday, right under the panel. Obviously, that'll be the first. And we required to do 2. I think that's a national code now, but anyways, Dallas has required it for a long time. Actually, this is Richardson, but Dallas is also. Since UFERs, you don't have UFERs in these older structures. That's why they've been doing an additional ground, plus the cold water ground. But I put the first one here, and you're supposed to do a minimum of 6 feet between ground rods. That one's over 6 feet, but it's a minimum of 6. Electrical engineers have determined that the most optimal minimum distance is 6. So the electrical engineers are the ones who, in school, they were the ones that did not go out on Tuesday and Wednesday night. You might remember those ones. So they actually stayed in those nights. But and then we got this. This one actually comes down to about 13 feet, 14 feet. So we get it longer for. All right. So these are. Gosh, turn off the radio. See, these are the little stray dogs that we got a visitor. I don't think this is a homeless dog. Something tells me. What's your name? This is our dog break here. I had to turn the radio off for music copyright issues, but I don't know what. This little doggy came up here. Stubby tail. Almost looks, I don't know. It looks like a great lab, but no collar. Hasn't eaten me yet, so that's good. Yeah, pretty eyes. Yes. No obvious threat here. Hey, little guy. His toenails are kind of long. He's not real well taken care of. Very long toenails. So who knows what the story is there. Might be the neighbors. Oh, and he's gone. Okay, so a note before you cut the mast. Always the end you're going to use for the hub, make sure the threads are good. This one I'm not worried about because the little rigid couplings there, those threads I know are good. So I'll cut on the other end. These threads are probably good too, but you know, it's easier for that because you know it's been protected more with that rigid coupling on there. So these hubs are offset for a reason. You can mount them like this, or that. So that's how you adjust the distance off the wall. So they can be like, you know, that's the closest, and that's furthest, and that's in between. It's a kind of an ingenious design. A lot of people don't realize that. Okay, so I have the mast kind of on there. I have 3 screws in it. So the position this is in is the furthest away from the wall. And I'd recommend y'all not try. It's about almost a 50-pound piece of pipe. The only way I can do it is because I'm fantastically strong, but otherwise, even if it's windy too, it'd be a no-go. But so it's kind of sticking up here right now. What I wanted to do was a piece of unistrut here, and if I do that, it's not level. The mast, it pops it out level. I hope I'm getting this right. I can't really see the screen, but so what I'd probably have to do is just your traditional 2-hole straps, which I don't like to use because I don't think you get as back support. I'd have to, you know, get in the attic and probably support the back, you know, if I use something like that. So I don't know what I'm doing. I could get a unistrut behind the brick. That would help, but I'll have to figure out what I want to do here. Okay, so I spin this the hub so that it's closest to the house. That actually puts this level going straight up, and then put this here temporarily. Little 2-hole strap. So I'll use two of these 2-hole straps up there, and then about a foot down I'll put a piece of unistrut behind here like that. It's going to be a different piece, a little longer, but it'll be about a foot down. You don't want to get it too high up when you drill these bricks, because sometimes they can actually fall back. So you want to, get it a little bit lower. But this will be a nice support here to the unistrut. So, but just kind of a side note, since this is not a weight supporting mast, all the weight's being supported up there on that eye bolt. Technically, most inspectors or cities, I think, would be fine with that being EMT, lighter and not rigid. I like doing stuff with this kind of stuff in rigid, just the permanence of a service on there. But anyways, so I'm sure anybody doing these, you'd probably comment on that, I'm sure. So I did consider all that. And I'll use these 2-hole straps up there. If I can get unistrut behind there, I prefer to, but those will hold it fine. Okay, so I got my 2-hole strap up here. Bring up the magic bubble stick, and that's level right there. And so what I'm going to do is, I think there's actually wood support behind this siding in the attic. That's extremely important. You want this top one, not just to depend on siding, obviously, for its support. So what I'll do, I have a drill here. I'll pre-drill when I put the camera down. Make sure there's wood behind that fitting. And just a side note, never use the 1-hole straps. Always use 2 on this stuff. Always. If you use 1-hole strap on something like this, you're a bad electrician and should be an electrician timeout. Okay, so I didn't feel good about the backing of the siding, so I drilled the hole that I was going to drill the strap into. Put a little green wire, came in the attic, because that's just the type of dedicated electrician I am. And sure enough, has about a little over an inch. So what I need to do is actually screw it into the little metal flashing to get into this wood here for that support, which is really critical. So that's a good old template here, and that's it. But that's a very important thing to do for the support. Okay, so I got these lag bolts. I got two 2-inch straps, and then the one on top is going into studs behind it. Then I went in the attic and blocked out for another one. So I have 2 of these that are through siding and studs with 1/4-inch lag bolts. This is a 3-inch 1/4-inch lag bolt, and these are zinc plated lag bolts. And then the piece of unistrut with this strap on the unistrut. So this thing is strapped on big time, not going anywhere forever. Okay, so I torqued down the mast wires here and installed the Weatherhead, and put the Weatherhead in, then went and torqued down the lugs, so that everything was finally set. Just use it here. It's 250 pounds, but that's in inch pounds instead of foot pounds, which is kind of odd that they would do it in inch pounds. So it'd be like 25 foot pounds. But I just use, this is like what I use for my car too, just a torque wrench with a little hex head adapter on it. So, but now I'm starting to get together the panel set up here. Got my 2 little Myers hubs coupled back together, and I think that's it right now. I'm getting the panel ready and about to start drilling out the wall. Okay, It is raining outside, so I'm preparing to cut the sheetrock inside, or just getting everything kind of drawn out here. So this is the panel inside the closet. I'm going to have two conduits penetrating through the brick. This is what that hole is right there. And then I'll have the wires feeding through the panel, through the wall, right up inside here. Then I'll run the Romex up into the junction box. That's the way, if you can, I like to do it. You'll see more understand how I'm doing it in a little bit. But I got the wall marked out here. I couldn't find a stud over here, so I'm just going to cut this whole piece out from wall to wall. It doesn't appear to be a typical 16-inch stud separation there. So I'll just cut this whole piece out very carefully using shallow tools like this multi tool, or if you use a saw, use a short blade. This is definitely safer, but either way, even with this, you got to be careful, because this wall is full of wires, obviously. So do that gingerly. Just don't go plowing into the wall with the big old 6-inch blade, and bad things would happen, especially with this federal panel still hooked up. That would be like that'd be like a big bonfire. Actually, it would not be good. Okay. So, see, one thing I forgot to mention. See how I got the bag taped up here? I always do that on jobs, no matter what. So this is gonna catch. There's a lot of dust, obviously, and even though this carpet's not gonna be saved, I'm gonna be working here doing other stuff. And if you don't capture most of it like that, it's just going to be like making a dust storm anytime anybody walks through here. And this is so easy, just catch up the dust and so forth. But this is, there actually appears to be a stud here. So now I got this all cut out. I'm going to try to get this piece out without it breaking. That's kind of the next deal. And one other thing too, never use, and when I say never, I don't know the experience level a lot of times of people watching these videos, but try not to ever use Sharpies, or actually painters, and we'll say never use Sharpies when you're outlining these things. It's because it's impossible. If you're painting over the keels, anything won't cover up the Sharpie marks. This might not affect it, but I would just always get in the habit of always using pencils everywhere. That for sure. Now, when I'm going through marking a house, for do construction or framing, I get the Sharpie out there and mark away on the studs. But sheetrock like this, always use pencil. Over and down. Okay, so this is the outside brick. I haven't shown this yet after I chiseled it out. So this is a 2-inch hole saw. I'm gonna go inside the holes that I did yesterday, and then I'm gonna drill through the little sheathing vapor barrier of the time on each side, then get those large holes out, and then I can get something from this side and kind of hit that sheetrock and kind of pound it out from this side, if that makes sense. That way I'm not trying to pry the sheetrock from the inside, and that tends to break it. This is the tool of the hour, possibly day, maybe even millennium. This is the Klein, what I affectionately call beater screwdriver. It's what you use to beat the hell out of stuff. Has a metal end and a solid metal shaft all the way through, because we know the solid shafts and things are always beneficial, as opposed to something like this would be a non-solid shaft. We like the solid shaft. Sorry. But anyways, so using this religiously will save the ends of this. So you have a nice sharp screwdriver for tightening things up. And this you can pry, beat, remove. Yesterday, I beat out I drilled out the bricks with the drill, and then got a hammer in this and chiseled out the rest of the hole. So that's definitely, Milwaukee makes one of those too. It's handy, but I got my holes cut out. And the other second tool of the day is actually it's more the blade. It's a bimetal stubby blade. It's just long enough to cut the bolts in there. So imagine this is in there like that. So you just get that right in there and cut out the 4 mounting screws. And then I got everything vacuumed up clean. I have a pull box up here because I'm actually going to add a circuit or two, and so that'll allow me to bring it in up here. And then everything is the cuts. Always cut stuff with make sure all the cuts are perpendicular, level, everything. It just looks professional, and also sheetrock guys. It makes a lot. If you're gonna have a sheetrock guy, they won't be cursing you because the diagonal cuts you're making, and they're gonna have to redo. And then got this cut out here, pretty even. I save the scraps. I always recommend that. Sometimes you can reuse them. Usually, if it's from 1960, you cannot. It's just too brittle. And then remove the insulation using my gloves. I would always just remove it and just throw it out. It's not worth reusing. And that is it on sheetrock prep. Okay, this house has a really cool original 1960 sink and these original countertops. It's cool how it's gray, and not everybody's going to gray and white. Everywhere, gray and white. It makes you kind of like want to scream sometimes. These people were ahead of the time in 1960. That's pretty cool. But what is not cool is that. This new-tone surface mount heater, also from 1960, that's about to go because it's a fantastic, fantastic fire hazard. No, not a fantastic good fire hazard, bad fire hazard. So if you have one of these, remove them yesterday. So something else interesting besides this 3-inch box, this wire is actually in decent shape from the heater. So there's a ground on here that would travel down to the switch over there. But there's also these little neutrals. It looks like 14 gauge bare copper. And so they would run that bare copper because a lot of times the Romex didn't have a ground. They probably ran it down to that fixture and also that fixture. So they run the bare ground to ground everything in the bathroom without running Romex with the ground, even though that had it. Also another thing really cool, porcelain wire nuts. See my clean hands? This is right there. I got a pedicure. Manicure. I got a manicure yesterday. Can you tell? Anyways, these porcelain wire nuts, how many people have seen those? Indestructible. Not going to use them, obviously. Okay, I don't know if I should be, this might be too bright with the sun, but this is my progress here. And the music played, and I always do, or try to include what music was playing, since I obviously can't play it while I'm doing this video, was the Viagra Boys, Ramones, and Morrissey. Some old Morrissey. And not newer Morrissey. So that was what was played primarily. And actually some, what's the other one? Gosh, I went brain dead on the other artist. But anyways, that was, Diverse Music was brought to you by KKXT 91.7. Anyways, back to work here. So I got these made up. So this is why I left this undone. I always recommend not to do one feeder when you're doing these at a time, to do all the meter base ones, get them where you need, but do the meter base all at once, then this side all at once. Because if you do one and then the next one, you're going to be fighting each other, trying to get it in the conduit here, and the wire push through. This way it's a whole lot easier. So that's why I left that undone before I screw them down and torque them. And I think got everything here. Myers hubs all buttoned up. I don't think that's anything else out here. This LB, obviously. So this is what I'm going to work on next. And so we have this going into these two for the inside of the wall for the panel. So, but for anything under the house with this crawl space, you always want to have a conduit coming down for anything that's going to be added or changed. You know, anytime I'm doing a service, I try to have it so they don't have to mess with it for a while. Get a big 2-inch conduit going into the crawl space. You know, so it's like, you know, it's done. You know, they don't have to come back and change things up. Anyway, so that's what this is right here. And so right now I'm going to go and measure the distance in the crawl space to a good cold water connection point for my cold water ground. And I'll use 4 solid copper on that. What's in there now is 6 gauge because it was sized. That's, you know, that service, the original one's like 100 amps, maybe 125. So we'll do a larger 4 gauge for a 200 amp water ground. And also to notice here, don't yell at me because these are still sticking up. I got that one over there. So the way I do service stuff is I'll do a little bit at a time, especially those because they beat the hell out of you. But I do a little bit at a time because I can always do this later after the fact. I just want to make sure I get all this other stuff done, and an inspector is going to be fine. You know, if he knows that those just have to be driven a little bit more. This part here is what they're concerned about. Okay, the following work was done while listening to a shuffle of the group Cake on Tidal. It's one of my favorite groups, Cake. I love Cake. So this is basically all these number 6 ground lines or solid copper lines, utility bonding hub. I kind of put that up on top of the panel. That's not used as much anymore with fiber optics, but still some. But and bonded that here. And then I always bond in the panel, especially since this is where all the grounds and neutrals are coming together. Of course, the bonding screws in, and then this is just an extra bond from the neutral to the grounds. That way, it doesn't have to rely on the housing of the metal of the panel itself. Did the same here, just a 6 little jumper, and then the wire going down for the ground rods. And so anytime this is, if you can make this look neat, level and even, those anchors are every 18 inches apart. They're level all the way across. These this run is level going all the way down. That's in the middle of the brick. That's in the middle of the brick. It's just little details like that that kind of will separate, you know, if you just kind of stuff, you know, you from a lot of the guys out there. And then up here, you know, got the one little strap here for the utility bond. But all this, so I literally got a 2x4, and this is put a mark there and there every 18 inches. put my level on the 2x4 and just did it that way. Mark the wall. So this is what made all this glorious work possible. A 1/4-inch SDS bit, and that's one of my smallest one I have. 1/4-inch lead anchors. I buy these by about 50 to 100 pack at Ace Hardware. They don't sell that at Lowe's or Home Depot, as far as I know. They used to sell them, but they'd come with screws, and they'd be like a 10-pack, and I don't like the screws. So, and then this little 1/4-inch little tie downs, and the screws I use are hex head, the 1-inch hex head. These are galvanized. I buy these in the 100-pack, and these are really tight in this little. See, if you use the 5/16, it's too wide. It's too wide. The little 1/4-inch lead anchors make this, with this screw, get real tight. So you can really see. I mean, that's just, it gets real tight in there. That lead lasts forever, a lot longer than if you use plastic. So that is it. So it's 7 a.m. hanging out on the roof, waiting for Oncor, being creepy electrician guy up on the roof doing a video. This house is a creek lot. It's really cool. Love creek lots. So we're gonna see, Oncor's about to show up, and we're gonna see if they see a brittle dry line and will easily replace it, because it's their responsibility to do it, not the homeowner. In other words, they can't charge the homeowner, which I kind of wish they would, because then they would be more apt to replace them. But it's their responsibility, and they usually get here and just want to do what's easiest. So we shall see. It's anytime in North Texas there's a storm and these huge amounts of people lose power that shouldn't. It's because Oncor just does the bare minimum, and so we're gonna see if this is a part of it here. Just getting them to do the bare minimum is sometimes a struggle, but sometimes if they know, hey, this guy took pictures of this dry brittle wire, they're going to be more apt to do something. So we'll see. Okay. All right, that was Javier with Oncor. Javier with Oncor says this overhead line right here, this one right here, is okay. Okay, I'm trying to be productive here. I'm gonna go run the I just get so upset with these things, with the service and so forth. I really shouldn't, but I even texted Philip at Oncor. They're evidently one of the managers, and I sent him pictures. So and I have not heard back. So we'll see what Philip with Oncor has to say. Anyways, I'm going in the crawl space. So I'm going to run the cold water ground. It's because it has to be larger, number 4, and also I want to make sure it's attached correctly. So basically with plastic pipe, you want to, or PVC, PEX, not PVC, but mainly the PEX, the newer non-conductive plumbing. You really want to make sure you get an attachment to ground kind of as close to the incoming main line as possible. It used to be up to the water heater, but now they kind of want it in the in the crawl space with the main lines coming up, because if you do at the water heater anymore, it used to be it'd be right behind the disconnect of the water heater, and that's really not the way to do it now, because that plumbing could be changed to PEX or something like that and not be conductive or do any good. So that's issues with that. So if anybody's been doing this a little bit, they'll know what I'm talking about. But anyways, this is what I have for under there. This is what I use here. This is a coverall with protective hood. It's a Home Depot brand. It's kind of dry under here, I'm not sure, but it just makes it easier. Put this on and you're not, take it off and not so gross the rest of the day. Not that crawl spaces bother anybody. But, so this is what I have in I have this little gray bin here, which I put my tools in and materials, and just slide that along the ground. It's really the easiest way to do it. Got my pipe bond here, big flathead, little flathead, Kleins, staples, and a little Brillo pad. You want to clean around the pipe where it's being attached to. That's very important, because you want to have the best connection point possible. And also too, after you get done, I'll do an ohm reading on it to see before we hook it to the panel, see how good of a connection it is. And I'm going to do the best filming this. I'm about to go under. It's kind of hard to. I might just film parts of it. So that's it. Okay, here we are in the glorious crawl space. And so this is pretty typical crawl space in North Texas. This is dry, which is good. You don't want them too dry, but you don't want them wet. So this house has the original 1960s metal duct in the crawl space, which is an air, which would be the actual air return. No, actually, it'd be air return. So, but anyways, so always check stuff out like this for customers. A lot of times, they might not know much about their crawl space, and there's really a lot of important stuff going on down here. Now, this is old duct. It's been bent right there where somebody tried to crawl over it. This is the old tape right here. This thing is probably leaky as all get up. So it's going to be bringing in all the stuff from the crawl space through those pipes. And so you can't see anything over there. So just kind of give them a report on that. And AC guys should really be in tune with this kind of stuff, HVAC person. A lot of that will be picked up in the air filter, but who knows how well. Okay, so try to get the light as good as possible. So there's the little cold water ground. I pushed it through that LB that I installed, and I'll go get it. So this side of the house actually is a little more moist. So it's not bad, but there is a definite difference with that. So that's why these little jumpsuits I wear are good, because all this mud would have been all clingy. It's the black clay stuff that I have lamented about many times. Anyways, y'all don't want to hear me whining in the crawl space. Probably not, but I'm going to anyway. So it's actually probably a healthy crawl space. No termite guard. That's something you can tell customers there. No termite guard there, and no termite guard there. So they would have to do a little path around the concrete here. So you got to kind of really be in tune with crawl spaces like this. You know, some of the older ones, like in a house I've been in it many times, they actually would use boat arc and cut the boat arc trees when they were clearing the lots for the houses back in the teens and 20s, even before that. And then they use them for stumps. Or I mean, they use the stumps for foundation piers, which when I see one next, I'll definitely video that. But I used to think that was awful. But the boat arc, from what I understand, actually gets harder as it gets older, and it's termite resistant. So who knows? Was that a hack job or what? It still looks bad having stumps, I think, as foundation piers. Okay, so I ran the line over here. Try to get the lines up above the rafters like that. It makes it easier. It's easier to staple. It doesn't hang as much. It's harder to do, but it's the best overall. So this is the lines for the water heater right here. I'm pretty sure that would be the cold side. It's a 3/4 inch copper. I'm gonna go run the water to make sure it's the cold side of the water heater and for the hot pipe. This I can be pretty sure is asbestos. Asbestos enhanced. What would you call that? Sheath, or the insulation or pipe wrap. So if it's really good, it lasts forever, then it's going to be asbestos. And if it kills you, it's asbestos. It's good stuff. But so I'm going to go run the water through, get my utility knife and dust mask for when I cut it. Okay, there's a little connection point here. I'm going to suggest that homeowners have a plumber come in and make sure all the pipes are up good underneath here. I think that's fine. I've just got a little area exposed. But I'm going to go over there, put one or two staples. Got one staple there. And that was the cold water. The other pipe was warm. That's a little trick you can do to identify cold and hot pipes. So I'm going to go ahead and discuss some things, although I shouldn't because asbestos is flying everywhere. So this line here is probably the closest to the main. The wall, the foundation is that way where the main disconnect would be. So that pipe probably goes up underground and maybe junction somewhere. I don't know for sure. But I think this is a really good spot to get it. You're just, you can't see any other stuff. As far as plumbing wise, everything else is buried. So I think this is probably your best grounding source. Okay, so looking at other wires here in the crawl space, I saw this one was sagging over here, and then it sags way over there, over by the kitchen. I stapled it here just temporarily. My guess from the size of the wire, this little junction box here would be the clothes dryer. And it junctions right here. That's not good. I'll show that to the customer. They just need a new, 10-3, ran for it. So the mast in the old service had this Phelps Hair-Shaw flame stop. Pretty interesting. I like the old wire when it still has the stuff on it. This is not aluminum. This is actually tin-coated copper. Hard to tell the ends, but you can kind of tell. So when I go to the recycler, most of the time they realize it, but there's sometimes some people aren't used to it. All right. So I'm kind of scurrying along, trying to get things done quickly before the inspector gets here. This is under where the panel was. This is the old cold water ground. I got no ohm reading on that, no resistance. Of course, I didn't get any resistance on the one I ran reading either, or it's too high. So I'll go over that later. But anyway, this one was undersized at 6 gauge. But so this is the wires coming through here, and I came into a stud here, so I kind of blocked this off here because I had to notch that stud. So I kind of put a little block here and then screwed about 4 long screws in there. To kind of shore that up. This is a little 2x4 to staple stuff on. I don't think I'm going to staple them there. I think I'm going to staple them here. But this is the 12x12x4 junction box. I have 3 1-inch Romex connectors at the top and 3 Romex connectors at the bottom. And it kind of gives a neat look here. So when I put this in, I got these, I fed these wires from the top in, made up these connectors, the lock nuts, while the box was loose, and then pushed it up against here. So it's one less sheetrock seam the guys have to worry about above here. They have this, of course, and the stuff below. But this will make it just a little bit easier, tuck it up in there if you can. The box is bonded right back there. It's actually a 10 gauge bond. I use the wire from the dryer, or from the 10 gauge circuit. I believe that's the dryer circuit. So, but have everything. I didn't obviously push it back in. I wanted to show everything. Kind of a little interesting note. So this older wire, this is the 10 gauge. They used 16 gauge grounds on some of the stuff. It's smaller. They're still getting used to even thinking that a ground could be important. So let's just throw in something. It's like so. That was only for a few years. You see that, but so I got the ideal. The push connectors, absolutely love. The only traditional wire nuts is for the 10 gauge. I didn't have any of the Wago 10 gauge connectors. So I usually like to use all the same, but I think this is fine. And then I have one extra wire right here, circuit, which is always handy. But I think that's it. And then I'll go back and staple these bad boys up. So, but that's the glorious junction box. And I really think this looks so much better than taking your panel, screwing the lid shut, and then making it a junction box. I hate to say it, I don't even think that should be allowed. But this looks a lot better, much more professional, but always, of course, make sure that's bonded. That's it. Over and out. Okay. I think I'm ready for the inspector. I just made a smooth transition into this from my previous video, like usual. I had really smooth transitions. So yeah, I got everything made up here in the panel. The little plastic covers on little holes there. I like to use just little pieces of foil tape and cut them in squares to plug up the old screw holes, just to make the panel as tight as possible. And this is the AC breaker size, the lock current rating. With the lock current, they recommend 40 amp breaker on the little nameplate on the unit. And and this is the LB I put here. And there's just a ground rod in it right now. The reason I do that is, if you notice, there's also no oven or cooktop or any circuits. It's actually a gas range. So for any future things added or new washer dryer line, the crawl space is very easy as far as crawl spaces go to get stuff in. So you got this conduit for the future. I think thinking things that, and kind of doing stuff for that for the, you know, future growth is how you kind of need to think with customers. And this is my 3.2 ohms. I should have probably hit that first. Oh, yeah, 3.2 ohms, which that's good. And it was yesterday 5 ohms with one ground rod. And then I hooked the other second ground rod up, and it was 3.2. And I have this one buried, or not buried, but closed up over here. I really like keeping the ground rods sticking up out of the ground. They say they should be in the underground. I just don't like that. I like the being able to see the connection and make sure that's intact and so forth. You know, 15, 20 years down the road, you can see where it is and if the connection's good. I think that's it. Now, one kind of general rule too, I always your wires kind of get it as high as possible first. Like the neutrals, always start at the very top and get as much wire on those, just to give you as much wire as possible that you don't have to cut. These older ones right here, I was actually able to pull 4 original circuits through and then tie those in. I can be able to do that because it's one less junction in the panel. But I think that is everything. And this cover closes like that and then closes up. I'm not going to show you because I'm holding camera, but so this is what the mast the connection should look like without me and the owner having to go through 2 days of fussing with Oncor. So the old line, which was 54 years old, part of the original service, it shouldn't even be questionable whether that's to be replaced. So they actually did this today, got the new one hooked up to my new eye bolt there, and if you notice how that sticks out far, which I like, because that keeps the overhead line a little further away from the edge of the roof, and that can be an issue. So that is all made up nicely. And coming down here, so I'm going backwards on. And so this is the finished product here. Kind of got it labeled, and yes, I label in pencil, and y'all can comment whatever. I don't like doing it in pen, but so I just do it in pencil. This is my handwriting. So the homeowner said they're going to go back and use a labeler. So, but everything pretty much. I got a couple of spares here. Those are spare breakers. Then I got one spare 20 in that box. They have one actually I couldn't identify, which that's actually pretty normal in a house from 1960. But everything's buttoned up, ready to go. And I did not listen to any music while labeling the panel or doing this last part, because I had to hear my assistant / wife while I was labeling. But if this is the kind of stuff that interests you, I'm gonna be doing some service stuff. I'm trying to get information for people mainly in the trade that want to just kind of get some different ideas on how to do things and so forth, or even leave comments. I learn new things every day. So for instance, this is my first time on a service. I've actually used Myers hubs. I always do the offset. And then the first video I did about services, several people said, you can't do that, you can't do that, gotta use Myers hubs. So I'm not resistant to a change. But so if this is the kind of thing that interests you, I'm going to be having other videos about this. I'm also going to do videos on my van right there, as far as certain ways I customize the inside of it, stereo, I'm going brain, the big inverter, that kind of stuff. You know, it's good ideas with that. I'll have content like that. So if this is the kind of stuff that interests you, please, you know, follow, subscribe. That helps. Of course, big thumbs up if you think this is worth it. So thank you. All right, so these are, turn off the radio. See, these are the little stray dogs that we got a visitor. I don't think this is a homeless dog. Something tells me. What's your name? This is our dog break here. I had to turn the radio off for music copyright issues, but I don't know what this little doggy came up here. Stubby tail. Almost looks, I don't know. It looks like a great lab, but no collar. Hasn't eaten me yet, so that's good. Yeah, pretty eyes. Yes. No obvious threat here. Hey, little guy. His toenails are kind of long. He's not real well taken care of. Very long toenails. So who knows what the story is there. Might be the neighbors. Oh, and he's gone.